Sharim Malachei Elyon Mimelech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Welcome to Tanakh Talk. Enjoy this beautiful music by Joe Buchanan from Houston, Texas. Broadcasting live tonight out of Kingsland, Texas with Rabbi Stuart Federow. Judaism and Christianity, a contrast. You can find at Amazon.com with Rabbi Stuart Federow.
Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem.
Wow, that is such an amazing song, Rabbi. Thank you so much for letting me. Man, you know what? It'd be cool if we could just play this entire song. Anyway, we'll probably fit it in at some time. But man, that's such an amazing song. Yes, indeed.
This whole CD is brilliant.
Oh wow, that was really cool, man. Rabbi, been missing you. How are you? Besides, I know you're not feeling too hot, but
yeah, doing okay. Week from today is my surgery on my back, so a week from tonight we won't be broadcasting, but the week after I'm hoping to.
Right, that's true. And in fact, if anybody who is watching this now, y'all should all know that at least next Sunday and Monday there will be zero broadcast for Pesach and stuff. Now the following Sunday there will be. I don't believe that. I think on the 1st. May 1st, which is Sunday,
it's no longer Chag.
It's no longer Chag, yeah. But so I'm not sure if the other Rabbi Singer is going to record or not, but I know Skovak will be at 9:30, and then hopefully we'll have you back on that Monday night if you're feeling up to it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So too.
I know, right? I sure do. Okay, cool. Well, this is sort of a last moment thought process, but I think it would be really, really cool. Especially given the Chag at hand. Well, how would you say that?
That's right.
Chag Bayad. Chag Bayad.
Right.
Right, very good. So, anyway, we're going to just make this whole entire episode, unless we get phone calls. Now, you can call in with your questions to any topic that you want. But if there's no phone calls, Rabbi Federow and I are going to be discussing the issues of Passover, the Passover problem, which
all of them,
not just one. There's plenty to go around. So, with that said, I think we'll probably get kicked off here. Let me make sure that I've got our Ring Central logged in real fast, and that should take me just a moment. Where's my screen? There it is, right there. Okay, so the very first topic that. For me, that was amazing because if any of you out there have heard my testimony, you'll see the Passover problem is basically what I called, I guess you could say, what we titled my interview with Rod and Ira on Israel National Radio, and the Passover problem that set me free. And so for me, it was such it was a tragedy in my mind because Rabbi, I'm telling you, I literally. For the first time after I started studying Hebrew, and this is while I was a Messianic because we were getting all super spiritual, being the fulfilled Jew, you know how that goes. And it was about the holiday time, and the first year came around, and I was getting ready to have to write up or do something for Passover, for Pesach, and I wanted to come up with some sort of a cool message to kind of lay out to everybody. And I started looking around, and I was like, wait a minute, 2 + 2 doesn't equal 5 here. What's up with that? And then a little bit more, some other problems. So I went on Facebook and I started asking questions to my faithful Messianic friends who were very well educated in the New Testament and in Torah, supposedly. And they said, oh, well, here's the answer to this. But it was like, it didn't work, though, because that was the answer I already knew. And that answer didn't work. But for them, it did. And I was thinking, you know
Wil'Liam,
what? Yes.
What was one issue and what was their answer to it? I'd be very curious.
Well, let's see. The blood sacrifice. My deal was I was seeing how there was an issue with blood sacrifices to begin with, and I even mentioned King David with his son. In fact, I was taught by our group, not those people, but I was also educated in the King David scenario, saying that, well, King David's son if blood sacrifice was really a problem, why did God take David's son from him? This was their they basically would say God took his son because of his sin, and that atoned for him. But that's not true.
No.
But that's not true. So that was one of them. The other one was the whole. Oh, get this one. I'm sorry. I'm going to try not to laugh. I don't.
Go ahead and laugh. It is laughable.
I don't want to become disrespectful to anybody, because most of the people who are still doing this, they're doing this ignorantly, and they're doing this, and they've studied, and they're being taught this stuff. So,
William, you are a nicer person than I. No, seriously. I mean, this is, I have, there's a woman, may she rest in peace, in my congregation who used to say that I was not capable of suffering a fool lightly.
Oh, wow.
And I think she was right.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
have very little patience for that kind of thing. So you're nicer than I am.
Oh, okay. So the second thing was, and I was still amazed by it, was I said, well, Passover has nothing to do with sin. Okay, it has to do, with remembering the exit of Egypt, and Yom Kippur was for sin.
Yeah.
But what they said was, well, William, you don't understand. They said Passover was for a personal sacrifice, whereas Yom Kippur was for a national sacrifice. There were two different, and so I'm telling you, man, they're pulling bunnies out of hats all over the place. But for me, it was a 3-year journey. That was the first year I finally said, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to ignore it, and we'll just kind of blow it off. We did Pesach, and another year passed. Second year came around, same thing. I was like, oh man, Passover's here. I got to find out those answers again. So I went in and I started asking people like Brad Scott Ministries. I've got a friend named Brad Scott on Facebook, but I don't think it's the same guy. And Sandy Bruce, who is very well, he's practically fluent in Hebrew, so you would think he would know. And they still come up with the same answers I already knew. I knew this nonsense, and it's what it is. It's nonsense. It's crazy. And so finally I passed it off again, and by year 3 I was done with it. That's when I went public. I said, you know what? I'm out of here, guys. And I just totally slammed the door. Whew, yeah. Welcome home, William.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So anyway, with that said, let's go with the most obvious things right now, and the whole point of Passover, Easter, and just to clarify, if you're watching this and you're a Messianic, you're still a Christian. You may not, just because you change the name of who you worship doesn't change the fact that you're still worshiping a demigod, someone who is a subservient to Hashem altogether. So I'm going to group you guys together, and all of the viewers who have already left Christianity, anytime you hear me say Christian, I'm including Messianics in there, because despite their differences, they're way too much alike to separate them. So the number one thing, Rabbi, I want you to really, I'm going to switch screens, and I'm going to go into silent mode while you tell us.
Don't do that. I like talking to you.
I like talking to you too. Okay. All right. Well, I won't do that then. I'll keep it the open dialogue here. So the very first thing is Passover, Easter. Jesus died for your sins. I'm not going to elaborate. I'm not going to add anything, other phrases. Let's attack that. Did Jesus die for your sins?
No, the issue is, can Jesus die for your sin?
Okay.
Let's see. First one comes to mind is Exodus, I think it's 31, where Moses comes down from the mountain. The Jews are worshiping the golden calf, which is a whole issue in and of itself. Just let me throw this out quickly. Okay, Moses is gone, and so they make the golden calf. And what they say about the golden calf is effectively, this is what brought us out of the land of Egypt. This is what saved us, or whatever. Okay? I'd have to check on the exact terminology. And
we got a caller.
One commentary, and don't ask me which one, because frankly it's not my memory to be able to remember that, but reminds us that they were replacing Moses,
right?
Not God.
Right.
Okay, so the whole conversation about the golden calf is a separate conversation. Okay. But Moses comes down from the mountain. He gets angry with the people of Israel, throws down the 10 Commandments, all that stuff. The next day, he says the following, because he doesn't know what to do. Okay, he never faced with a situation before. He says, maybe, perhaps, I can make atonement for your sin. So he goes up to God and he says to God, these people have sinned a great sin, therefore forgive them, and if not, and the text reads, blot me out of your book. Okay, so what book is that?
Blot me out of your book.
Right. Which book? What book is that talking about?
Well, are you talking about with Moses?
Yeah. Moses says to
Yes.
God, after the people of Israel sin, he doesn't know what to do.
Right.
He says, perhaps I will make atonement for your sin. Goes to God, says, forgive them. If not, blot me out of your book.
The book of
What
life.
what
You
book?
would think it would be the book of life, but I mean, is that what he was referring to? I mean, I know where his name was removed from.
And my answer is, who cares? No, seriously.
Yeah,
the point
I'm with you.
The point is that to be written out of the book, whatever book that may be, it could be the book of who gets dessert after dinner tomorrow night. But to be written out of that book means to be punished. So Moses is saying, whatever that book is, punish me for their sin. Now, yes, some people say it's a certain section of the Torah narrative. Most people say that, their immediate response is it's the book of life, and he's saying, kill me for their sin. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. To be written out of that book is to be punished, and Moses is saying, punish me for their sin. And what's God's response? Sorry, Moses, doesn't work that way.
Right.
The people who commit the sin are the people who get the punishment.
Nice.
So that's the first place. That is made into a singular verse in Deuteronomy 24:16.
Okay.
The father shall not be put to death for the sins of his children. Child will not be put to death for the sins of the parents. Every man shall be put to death for his own sin. That is the most important verse to memorize seriously
Right.
out of the entire Tanakh when dealing with Christian missionaries.
Yep. See it right here.
Because
Let me see if I can put that up.
William,
Yes.
they can take any verse they want to, interpret it in any way, shape, or form, and let me give you an example. I thought of this in the past week, by the way. William, did you know that Thomas Alva Edison is foretold in the scriptures?
No, but I'm
it
dying to find out how.
No, it's explicitly clear in the Bible, in the book of Genesis. God said, "Let there be light." Wait, why are you laughing?
Because
don't
I
understand
remember
what's
you
so
saying
funny.
this before, and it caught me still fresh. This is good. That's one I can retell 100 times.
Why are you laughing? This is my religion. That this is a
Yeah,
prophecy. Who's to say I'm wrong?
that's just funny, dude.
All you can say, William, is you don't agree with me, you don't like what I said, you disagree with me, you think it's faulty, but you can't prove that I'm wrong, that it's not a prophecy, because prophecy is prophecy.
Right. Yep, I'm
Right.
with you.
Or maybe it's whoever it is that invented the fluorescent light. Maybe it's about, I can say anything I want to, and nobody can tell me I'm wrong, unless there is another verse in the Tanakh whose clear, precise, peshat meaning contradicts my interpretation. So it doesn't matter if they look at Isaiah 53, it doesn't matter, Jeremiah, it doesn't matter where they look.
Right. Okay.
If their interpretation of Isaiah, whatever, contradicts the clear, peshat, simple, literal meaning of every man shall be put to death for his own sin,
Right.
then you have to reject their interpretation of those other verses.
Okay, and now before we take this call, I got David from Ocean Parkway calling in. Before we take this call, am I correct in saying that with Pardes, with Peshat, Remez, Darash, and Sod, that
Right.
there are 4 different interpretations, but
There are 4 different levels of interpretation.
Right? And the rule is one cannot violate the other.
No,
Is that correct or wrong?
no, that's not correct.
Oh, really? So one can actually completely...
No, because you can have one midrash that has a point to it that's the exact opposite of another midrash from a different period of time. That's not how midrash works. The issue is when it comes to halacha, when it comes to theology, you have to use the peshat meaning of a verse.
Okay.
Okay, the shot is primary, is central, I can't think of another word, is primary.
Okay.
So if I can come up with the most weird interpretation of a verse, like "Let there be light" as a prophecy of Thomas Edison inventing the light bulb. Okay, but if a verse is in the scriptures which contradicts that interpretation of this other verse, you have to reject that other interpretation of that other verse.
That may be what I was leading to, I guess.
And it doesn't matter. You can argue about Jeremiah 31, new covenant. You can argue about anything you want to, but if the most basic element of Christian theology, of New Testament belief system, is that Jesus died for your sin, and that statement contradicts the verse, clear and concise, precise, literal meaning of every man shall be put to death for his own sin, you have to reject the idea that Jesus died for your sin. Or you have to conclude that God did not mean what he said when he said every man shall be put to death for his own sin.
Right.
He must have meant something else. Or you have to come to the conclusion that God must have changed his mind between the time that he wrote every man shall be put to death for his own sin and the time he wrote Isaiah 53 or whatever.
Right, got it.
And when did God change his mind? When did he gather every single Jew back to Mount Sinai and say to them, "Oops, I changed my mind.
Right.
From now on, you can believe in the blood sacrifice of a human," which is another issue we have to discuss when it comes to this Passover nonsense.
Right. Okay,
and it never happened.
Right. Very good. Okay, David, thank you for calling in, sir. What is the question for Rabbi Federow?
Can he hear me?
Yes.
All right. If you remember, I called you on part 2, episode 2.
Yes.
Okay.
And you mentioned about your religious affiliation. So if you don't mind, can I pick on you?
You can pick on me all you want. I may agree with you, even with your pickings, and I may disagree.
Well, it's not if I agree. It's not if you agree with me. You have to agree with God.
Okay, wait, David. Let me interrupt you.
I'm a messenger of God.
Hey,
now,
David.
No. But what I'm saying is, I may agree with your critique.
Okay, I'll turn the volume down just a minute on the phone call. Rabbi,
David,
before you continue,
you want to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, please let me say something real fast. The purpose of this show is to discuss New Testament errors and to steer people out of that. So I'm going to have to say whatever conversation that we have on air, it needs to be regarding that. Okay, so I don't want to get into talking about Torah portions or debates on things that have nothing to do with the New Testament, because this is all about the New Testament. That's the whole purpose of this entire show. So if there's any picking, and I love David, he calls all the time and talks to Rabbi Singer and sends messages all the time. But if there's any picking, this is not the format to do that on. That's all I'm saying. Yes,
he makes assumptions about what I believe.
Okay.
Which he cannot assume.
Okay.
He makes assumptions that everything he's been told about, shall we say, other denominations of Judaism are true and accurate, which they may or may not be.
Right.
Okay, so, I may agree with him on his critique
right.
of exactly what he's going to say.
Right.
So,
Right. Okay. So, and again, I just really want to, just like with Rabbi Skovac's show on Sunday nights, we don't get a lot of calls because it's specifically geared towards a specific chapter in the entire overall Bible, and most people just want to hear the answers. They don't have a lot of questions on individual chapters. And so, like here, I want the calls to be very, very much associated with the title of this show, and let's stick to that, because that's how the show is going to be able to.
I'd be happy to discuss anything you want to discuss. Okay,
very good. So anyway, moving on. Phone lines are open, 855-952-4253. Feel free to call in. If we're in the middle of talking, it may take 5, 7, 8 minutes before we actually connect you, but you'll be able to hear us talking, so just kind of sit tight. With that said, Rabbi, let's move. Let's continue moving forward on that. The last verse we were just discussing, I found was really cool. Deuteronomy 24:16, and that's something that
Every time I have a conversation with a Christian, with a missionary, with a Christian missionary, I always bring up that verse. I let them do their talking, because everything will go back to the most basic element of Christian theology, and it contrasts heavily with not only Deuteronomy 24:16, but also the passage from Exodus that we just talked about. There are other passages that say the basic say. There's a psalm: nobody else can die for your sin. The person who commits the sin is the person who gets the punishment of that sin. It's that simple.
Right. Gotcha. Even it says, what is the one with the sour grapes? Is that no longer will the children's teeth be set on edge, but only the father.
Right. But you will never use this passage again in Israel. And it's also, interestingly enough, this quoted in Jeremiah 31:27-30. It's right before the usual typical Christian quotation of 31:31. So between 27 and 30, they also make a reference to the children's teeth being set on edge. It shows you the understanding of that verse back then in Jeremiah's day, when he says, basically, this nonsense about one person dying for your sin is no longer going to be believed by anybody and shouldn't be in the first place.
Right. Another big thing that that confused me in my studies, like even long before I was Messianic, but just in the reading of it, was not knowing how the Bible works in its chronology and its timing. Whenever it's talking about the holy days, it's talking about Pesach, and then it goes right into talking about Yom Kippur, like it's sort of connected. But realizing now that they're like 6 months apart from each other. But and so I can see how reading it back to back to back, they just sort of kind of blur together a little bit. And I think that may be one of the reasons why a lot of people are finding issues with where I'm at now. They don't quite understand that. They think that they're all kind of connected somehow. Jacob Daniel said, "Why would a Christian want Jesus to be a Passover lamb?" And I chuckle because I just found out like this past year. That Jacob, that's really, if they really knew what the Passover lamb was, there's no way in a million years they would ever say Jesus was a Passover lamb, because they're just confessing that Jesus is an Egyptian god
or pagan god.
Or pagan god.
Right,
and it's like,
right.
Man, that's really mind-boggling for me.
Right. And by the way, even if you didn't take the analogy with the pagan god, Egyptian god, just the whole idea of a Passover lamb, Jesus was a human. He wasn't a lamb.
Right.
So the basis of Christian theology is a human sacrifice, which in Deuteronomy, God calls an abomination and something he hates. Okay.
Right.
It's either Jesus, the God who died on the cross, or it's Jesus, the human who died. Somebody, what is it that did the dying?
Okay. So
God can't die.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate here.
So to speak.
The Akedah. Abraham
Yes.
and Isaac, that is massive, especially in Messianic circles.
Right, and I think we've discussed that before.
Right.
But, Isaac never died.
Right.
Okay.
God had no intention of letting him die.
There's a ram, that goes in his place.
Yeah.
It's one of the places cited by Judaism where God is teaching us that God doesn't want a human sacrifice.
Nice. Yeah.
So, and there's a lot more to that issue, which we've discussed before, but Jesus was scourged, okay? He was beaten. He wore a crown of thorns around his head, which every single pictorial representation of their God, which is in fact a problem, but shows that it pierced his head and he's bleeding from his scalp, okay? So even if God were to accept a human as a sacrifice, which he doesn't.
Bingo.
Okay. But even if he did, then Jesus couldn't be a sacrifice because he was with a blemish.
That's what I was going to say right there. That's the ticket.
Exactly.
Yep.
Which you mentioned already, the Passover lamb had nothing to do with sin.
Right.
So the whole analogy of making Jesus a lamb is problematic from the very beginning.
Okay, let's talk real fast about the male-female aspect of the lamb and sin sacrifices.
Every single verse except one, when it talks about a sin sacrifice, requires that it be a female lamb.
Got it, right.
So Jesus was a female?
Right.
No.
Oh, you just made me think of something else.
What was that?
This is a very... It's really interesting, and again, I'm only smiling because I'm really glad that I'm out of that understanding. But there's so many things that I've heard that the more I study this, the more silly that stuff really looks. One of the things that is a very messianic thing to say was the you know how the word "et" like in between like that's pointing to a direct object in the Hebrew.
The Aleph Tav.
Yes, and they say
God,
every time
amazing?
you see Aleph Tav, that's Jesus. I'm like, really? Now if that's true. My friend Lon pointed this out, and I'm thinking, okay, how would you refer to a woman, and then how would you refer to a man, masculine and feminine?
As what?
As in just referring like if you want something to drink, right? Ma'at rotse lishtot, or ma'ata rotse lishtot. So at aleph tav is feminine; it's not masculine. And so,
Well,
anyway,
that's true, but that's true.
Funny.
Okay, that's a very good response. You know, the other interesting thing to do is to take any verse at all in the Hebrew Scriptures that uses the "et," meaning the next word is the direct object.
Right. Well, yeah.
Okay.
That
And
points
if
to
that's
direct
supposed to
object,
be a representation of Jesus, then replace it with the word Jesus. Okay. No, if that's Jesus, then it should work.
Yeah, very
that you
true.
put the word Jesus where the word "et" was.
Right.
So, you know,
That's funny.
Moses picked up his staff. Okay, it would be lakach et. I
Right.
forgot the word for staff all of a sudden.
Gotcha. That's funny.
It's typical for me. But so it would be Moses picked up Jesus' staff, because the word Jesus replaces et. That tells you that the next word is what he picked up.
That's
So
funny.
does that make sense?
Yeah, that's funny.
You know, Moses picked up Jesus' staff.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay.
Not Jesus'
Okay.
staff, not the staff that belongs to Jesus, but just stick the word Jesus in there.
Right.
Or anywhere the word et, because that's what they're saying. It represents Jesus.
Right. Okay, here's another thing that I want to discuss.
Silliness.
This is something that in my third year of the Passover problem, just before I slammed the door in the New Testament, this is something that came to me, because I was trying to think to myself. I was thinking, okay, in the New Testament, it says that Jesus, behold the Lamb of God, right, that takes away. Keep in mind this phrase: takes away the sins of the world.
Right.
And I'm studying the sin sacrifice, which just so happens to not be on Passover, but in Yom Kippur, the two goats, right?
Right.
Which one of the goats takes away the sin? Was it the one that sacrificed, or the one that was taken out of the city?
The one that was taken out of the city.
Exactly. And so,
Okay.
if
but,
that's
but this is very interesting.
then let's
Okay?
go here.
All right, William. If a Christian were to actually, for a change, actually pick up the Tanakh and read it for a change,
Uh-huh.
instead of assume that what they're told is there when it's not. Okay. Yes, there is a tradition that after the ritual was over, which means that the atonement was already occurred for the people, there is a tradition that they took the goat and kind of like pushed it over the ledge. Okay, in other words, killing it.
right.
All right.
Right.
I'm not saying
But that's in the
tradition isn't
Midrash, though, so the Christians
But they-
can't really grab that.
bad. They grabbed that, but it's a later tradition.
Right.
And it's a tradition that developed, frankly speaking, from a superstition that if we put our sin on the lamb and the lamb is led away but comes back, it's like bringing our sins back to us. So as a matter of superstition, after the ritual is over, after it was already efficacious, effected, the atonement for the people, all over, done, then they saw to it that the lamb died, couldn't come back and bring their sins back. But the ritual demanded by the Torah never said that the animal was supposed to be killed.
Right.
So the ritual is not demanding the death of the goat in order to have the people forgiven.
Just as it's taken out of the camp by a fit man.
Right.
To the Zazel verse.
And the people are therefore forgiven.
Right.
So The later tradition has nothing to do with the ritual that God demanded in the Bible, okay? And the ritual without killing the goat affects the atonement of the people.
Okay.
You follow what I'm saying there?
Yes.
Yes. So.
Okay. Another
straws and killed straw men with the straws they grabbed.
Right. Okay. Here's another interesting thing that kind of hit me funny. In the story of Lazarus, everybody knows, who's ever been a Christian knows, that Jesus waited for 3 days until the body was stinking, so that whenever Lazarus was raised from the dead, no one would question it. There was no way anybody could ever question the fact that was really a miracle, that he really was dead. He was already stinking, right? Now, apply that same logic to the resurrection. How long was Jesus on the said cross? No more than 6 hours. How long does it take typically for a resurrection to fulfill its fulfillment, if you will? 3 days. It's theoretically a 3-day crucifixion is what it takes to kill somebody. Josephus actually has, it says in the complete works of Josephus somewhere, where there's record where 2 of his friends were also crucified. And he found out about it, and so he went and petitioned to have their bodies taken off, and he did. One of them, this is 2 days after this actually happened, one of them actually survived after 2 full days of being on this cross, right? Jesus was only on the cross for up to 6 hours. Okay, if that. Now, two problems.
If you read the Easter story in the Gospels,
it's like 3 hours.
One says 3, one says 6.
Right.
Well,
So keeping that logic in mind, keeping the Lazarus idea, they did this to make sure no one could question it. Okay, well, if that's true, then why didn't they apply that same logic to when Jesus died? Why didn't they wait 3 days? Why did it, that just doesn't make any sense. It's like, personally, I don't think he ever died. If he existed, and I'm not saying he did, he didn't, I don't really care, but if he existed and he was only on the cross, even if he was scourged and beaten, 6 hours, 3 days in the tomb was a hospital bed where he was recovering. I doubt very seriously that he ever died from the crucifixion. That's my personal opinion. Because there's just too many other things that don't line up.
There's a book, frankly, William, it's not that good. Okay, It was an attempt by a writer to scientifically, more or less, take a look at the gospel stories about the crucifixion and show how basically they could have faked everything.
Right.
So the vinegar he was given, or vinegar and myrrh he was given, or there are like 3 different things that he was given in the 3 different renditions of the story. So they don't even agree on what they gave Jesus while he was on the cross.
Right.
But whatever he was given, it's called the Passover plot. Of course, I can't remember the name of the author.
Okay.
My memory's not that good. But it's the Passover plot, and it says, what if there was a drug in the liquid he was given, and it made him look like he was dead, so they could take him down, and that explains why he was resurrected later, because he never really died. He was drugged and then, brought down. So you never know. Right. If you can even take any of those stories as if they're historical fact.
There's a video.
By the way, I just don't remember in the New Testament text where it says that Lazarus was 3 days dead before he was raised.
I don't remember. I just remember his body began to... I think it does say... I can look it up for you real fast. Well, we'll discuss some things while I'm looking it up. The next issue, and we will come back to that. I'm gonna put Lazarus 3 days so I can remember to look that up.
All right. Well, look it up later. Yeah. We can talk about it in a couple of weeks.
Okay, that'll work. Okay. So another issue that comes to mind, and this is something that it's probably not... it's not a major grand slam, but it is to me a little bit of an issue. Let me pull this up. Let me get the right rodent here to find the screen selection here. I'm going to go and pull up Isaiah 53, verse 9. Okay. And I'm going to kind of focus on the very first half of that verse. I'm going to put it up on the screen. Okay. And I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this with the William Hall translation along with it, just because this is how I read it. This is exactly how it looks to me as I read. Okay. Okay. So it says, "And he made his grave with the wicked." What is a grave? It's a place you're buried, right?
Right.
Okay. "And with the rich in his death." What is in his death? The actual verb. That's where he died, right? That's what it looks like on the screen. That's not what happened to Jesus. The opposite happened to Jesus. "And he made his grave." Where was his grave? It was in a rich man's tomb, a righteous man, right?
Right.
"And with the rich in his death?" No, he died with two thieves.
Right.
And I'm thinking, so, and if this is really what they cling to me, this was a major issue. And a lot of people just blow this thing off. But man, I'm telling you, this is just, if this is really applicable to Jesus, then he messed up somewhere, because it's not what happened.
Right. In other words, somebody was remembering it as they were inventing the story of Jesus, but they remembered it in a mixed up manner, and so they wrote their story about Jesus in a mixed up manner.
Right.
And we've talked about this before, I think, but remember, the Hebrew doesn't say "with the rich in his death."
Oh, what does it say in the Hebrew? Let's look it up.
With the rich in his deaths.
Oh,
it's plural.
So that may,
So whoever this is talking about in Isaiah 53 has to have more than one death.
Okay, hold
another
on.
Reason, another reason why you can say this is personified of the entire Jewish people, because there are many people who make up the Jewish people, each one of those people having their own death, combined making deaths.
That's what I was going to say right there.
Right.
Yep. Okay, I'm looking at it right now.
It's an additional point to the point you're making.
Okay, got it. Okay, I'm looking for it right now. Let's see. Oh yeah, right here, B'motav.
Right.
Oh wow.
Otherwise, it'd say B'moto,
Right.
but it says B'motav. There's a yud there, which clearly means plural deaths.
Very interesting. Okay, and just to confirm what you just said, I'm going to pull up on the screen now Zephaniah 3:13. Because, actually, let's go back there first, because I want to show you the English back again. I'm pulling it up again. The same verse, but verse B, the second half. "Because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth." And people say, that there's no way it could be talking about Israel, because everybody knows that they've done evil and all this other stuff.
Right.
But if you literally look at that phrase, "because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit found in his mouth," and then cross-reference that with Zephaniah 3:13.
Right. Zephaniah says, "The remnant of Israel shall do no iniquity, do no sin, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth, for they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid."
It's almost verbatim.
Right. By the way, again, you have to take a look at the passage from Isaiah 53, okay, where it says that. Okay, let me get back there. Okay. Which verse was that?
53:9.
9, yes. Because he had done no violence. Hello, what happened in the temple?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point, yeah. I didn't think about that.
And by the way, Christians will say, well, but that was valid violence. That was moral violence, and this is talking about immoral violence. No, it says done no violence. That means none at all. Okay, and the implication is here that because he had done no violence, okay, in other words, it's speaking to the innocence, okay. Jesus brought attention to himself by disrupting the activities of the temple, and it was that made him seen by Rome as a rebel for which he was crucified, as it explicitly says in the Gospels.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. So I think it's the John version says that Jesus made a scourge, a whip. He himself made it in order to use on the people in the temple. Mm. So that's how violent a person he was. That's how well thought out this attack was. This wasn't violent. This wasn't, sudden indignation at what was going on in the temple. This was a planned attack of violence. Okay.
Yep.
Second thing is no deceit in his mouth. Really? Okay. If I tell you something that I myself don't follow, doesn't that make me a hypocrite?
Yes.
Isn't being a hypocrite deceitful?
Yes. What are you referring to?
Jesus is known for having said, if someone slap you on the right cheek, turn to him the left.
Right.
And what did the soldier do to Jesus's cheek?
Like,
He slapped Jesus's cheek. Jesus reprimands him for the slap. And he
where was
says,
that at?
if I have done wrong,
Oh.
tell me what I did wrong.
Okay.
Okay, but if I did rightly, why'd you hit me? So he is
Right.
rebuking the soldier. He didn't turn the other cheek.
Right.
That's deceitful. That means he's telling people to turn the other cheek when he himself didn't do it. That's a form of deceit because he doesn't follow his own advice.
Okay, like a lamb.
It's called hypocrisy.
Like a lamb led to the slaughter, so did he go without opening his mouth. Did he
Except he
did
did
he
open
remain
his
silent throughout this whole thing?
No, I just gave you an example.
There's another one where he exchanges dialogue, right, in his defense.
With Pontius Pilate.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, with Pontius Pilate, people say that, Pilate asks him, I can't remember how it's worded, I'll have to look it up, but are you
the son? The son of. Let's see. Where can I look that up here? I don't want to mess up my screen here.
I've always been jealous of people like my brothers who can look at something, memorize it, recall it instantly, never have a problem. I've never been able to do that. But Jesus is asked by Pontius Pilate a couple of questions, and his answer is, "You have said it."
Right. That was not very clear, was it?
All right, but there is a place in the New Testament, where Jesus is talking to someone, and he agrees with him by saying, "You have said it." Okay?
Right, I'm
it's the
looking
same
for it now.
response. Okay, it's the same response. Wait a minute.
Let me look. Somebody may have actually posted it. Let's see.
Yeah.
No, not yet. That's okay. We don't. It's really not imperative that we find that, but I know what you're talking about.
But I will find it. Okay.
Okay.
But the idea is that Jesus is answering Pontius Pilate with the same phrase that in another section of the New Testament, Jesus uses that same phrase to say, "I agree with you."
Right.
Okay. So he is mounting a defense of himself. He is not silent before the shearer,
Right.
As the image is created. Okay. So he wasn't dumb before his shearers.
Right. Okay. Let's stay again. All this is going to stay on topic. Once again, the phone number 855-952-4253. The phone line is open if you want to call in with another question. I've got some questions popping up on the YouTube chat. Most of them.
Well, let's get to those questions first. Then
Okay.
I've got a point that I want to make.
Okay.
But we'll get to it later if we have time.
I want to make time for this next one where he says, partake of his blood and his flesh. That's massive. I want to get there. Okay. All right. Let's see. He says it to Caiaphas is one thing Jacob was saying. Let's see. Where is during his trial? Okay. That's what that was. Okay. Oh, that's a good one. Okay. This is an offbeat question, I think. Didn't Jesus send pigs to a terrible death? Judaism does not teach cruelty even to pigs.
Not only that, but
Jacob, good job, dude. That's a good one. All right.
It's not only that, by the way, but Christians will say that Jesus was God. If Jesus was God, Jesus has control over everything in the universe. Why wouldn't a compassionate, moral, merciful entity, known as Jesus, who is supposedly God, who can control everything, including the demons, just get rid of them?
Right.
Why does he have to put them in innocent little piggies and then basically kill the piggies? If he's God, he can just get rid of the demons.
Okay, now for an offbeat spin on this, the messianic spin is this. Of course, I don't know any messianic who will eat pork or shellfish or anything like that. They eat the items that are declared kosher, not necessarily halakhically kosher. However, this is one thing that we found very interesting back in the day, was that pigs are only mentioned one time in the New Testament. And the one time they're mentioned, Jesus is throwing trash into a trash can, theoretically. Evil spirits, why would you don't put good things into bad objects. You don't put bad objects into good things. And so if he cast evil spirits into these swine, that's just another mark showing right there. The only time you even think about pig or bacon, pork, sausage, whatever, it's a negative thing. It's got trash. It's full of trash and evil. Why would you even dare try to even eat something like that? I thought that was pretty cool, actually.
I think that's actually very cool.
Yeah. So. Okay. So we actually covered everything so far. So let's move forward. Drink, if you partake of his flesh, drink his blood. Why is that such a problem? Even speaking metaphorically, why is that such a problem? Why are Jews so appalled at something like that? I mean, I know the answer, but it's
we're commanded in numerous places in the Bible not to drink blood.
Right.
That's the whole point, by the way, of Leviticus 17. Leviticus 17, which has a verse in it that is, of course, taken out of context by the Christians, and they use the they use the quote the. Let's start over.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. By the way, I think I found the whole issue that we were referring to before.
Okay.
Let me just hold with that passage, and let me find this. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay. Give me just bear with me. Okay.
By the way, for you viewers out there, in the intro, you saw a picture of a book. In fact, I don't know if I have it separate on here, but Judaism and Christianity, A Contrast. This is Rabbi Federow's book. You can find it on Amazon.com. Excellent book. You really got to get a copy of this thing. It's like it's sort of like a condensed version of Rabbi Singer's 2-volume book set that's really massive. His is just a really compact, just loaded with information. It covers a lot of territory and a little bit of space.
Okay, just.
Did you find it?
I'm still.
What are you looking for? The one with where he said he was talking to Caiaphas and he said,
yeah,
where he slapped him or whatever. Just give me an idea. Hey, if any of you viewers out there know where it's at, send me a message on the YouTube chat.
All right, doesn't matter.
Okay.
All right, so let's go back to what you were saying. I thought I had it in another place, but I couldn't find it.
Okay, John 18:22. Yeah, John 18:22.
Okay, give me a second. John.
I just put on there Jesus got slapped, and it's like popping up all these verses. So, is that the right one?
18 what?
18:22. One of the officials nearby slapped him in the face.
If I have spoken evil, bear witness to the evil, but if well, why did you hit me?
Okay.
Okay, tell me what I did wrong, but if I didn't do wrong, why'd you hit me?
That sounds pretty silent.
Right. But that's a hypocritical statement because he's defending himself.
Right.
He's making an accusation against the person who slaps him instead of turning the other cheek. But there's a place in the New Testament where Jesus is asked something and his response is, "You have said so." I think that's where supposedly Judas says, "Is it me?" And Jesus' response is, "You have said so," which is the exact same phrase he uses when responding to Pilate or Caiaphas, whoever it was.
Okay, let's see.
See what I'm saying?
Yep.
The point is that he's agreeing with Pontius Pilate. He's not dodging the subject. He's not laying low. He's not giving a weird answer. He's agreeing with him. Are you the Son of God? Yes, I am. When he says, "You have said so," it's an affirmation of what was just done or said. Because this is what happens in an earlier passage. And of course, when I want it, I can't find it.
That's okay. And I just found another reference to it in Matthew 26:67, but that's not the same one. John 18:22-23. Those are the main ones that's popping up. I know which one you're talking about, though. He said, "You say that I am." So, in fact, maybe I just do that.
Yeah, but however that's translated, in any translation, they use the same translation because the Greek is the same, I believe, for the confrontation with Pontius Pilate. When Pilate or Caiaphas asked him, are you the Christ? And however they translate it in one place, they say also translated the same way in this place in any given single translation.
Right, got it. Okay, let me see one more thing here and see if this doesn't end. I'm going to pass it. I'll pass on it and see what happens here. Okay, Mark 8:29. What about you? Who do you say that I am? No, that's the one with Peter. What does you say? Who do you say that I am? Matthew 16:15. What about you? Okay, I'll just skip it. Okay, so all right, moving on. So drinking the flesh and I'm sorry, drinking. Yeah, pureed. Sorry,
right.
Drinking the blood.
Okay, so take a look.
Okay.
Take a look and put it up there if you can.
Yes, I can.
The Leviticus 17.
Okay.
Okay.
What verse?
Start with verse 10.
Got it. Okay, and whatsoever. Let's say it. Go ahead.
What the point of this paragraph, beginning with Leviticus 17:10, that includes Leviticus 17:11, is that if you are going to do a blood sacrifice, which was a way, not the only way, but a way to obtain forgiveness from God, only for unintentional sins, it was a way to do it. The point of this paragraph, of these verses, is don't drink the blood, it goes on the ground.
Right.
The purpose of it is to go on the altar, technically the sides of the altar.
Got it.
We should actually talk about that for a couple seconds later.
Sure.
But the point of this paragraph is, if you're going to use a blood sacrifice as a means through which you obtain forgiveness from God for your unintentional sins, there were other ways, this is only one way. Don't drink the blood, put it on the sides of the altar, that's where it goes, that's what it's for.
Beautiful.
Okay?
Yep.
So 17:10, whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, that eats any manner of blood, I will set my face against that soul that eats blood, and I will cut him off from among his people. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls, for it's the blood that makes the atonement for the soul. Therefore I said to the children of Israel, no soul of you shall eat blood, neither shall any stranger that sojourns among you eat blood. Christians will ignore 17:10. Christians will ignore 17:12, which gives you the context in which 17:11 is found. And they will say, see, the bloods make the atonement for the soul. You got to have blood for forgiveness of sin.
Now, isn't the entire chapter of 17 about dietary laws? The whole thing is about food? Are things consumed?
It's about sacrifice. And it gives, the...
okay.
Yeah, you're thinking of 17:11. I'm sorry, you're talking about Leviticus 11, which is the chapter for the foods that are kosher. You're taking the verse number as if it's the chapter number.
Okay, gotcha.
Leviticus 17:11 is don't drink the blood, but Leviticus 11 is the chapter on what's kosher.
Okay, got it.
Okay, the animals that are kosher. So
okay,
if you only look at 17:11, Leviticus chapter 17, verse 11, for the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls, for it's the blood that makes the atonement for the soul. It sounds like the text is saying only with blood can you get atonement, but that's not the context in which it is found. The context is don't eat the blood.
Right. Got it. No matter what.
So to answer his question, okay, the reason why the whole concept of communion, whether it's in Catholicism, where they actually believe it is transubstantiation, trans-changed, substance substantiation. The substance of it has changed. That's what transubstantiation means. So now it may look to you as if it is a wafer, but it's actually the flesh. It may look to you as if it's wine, but it's actually the blood.
Right. Got
In
it.
Protestantism, they don't take that literally. When Jesus says, this is my body, this is my blood, okay, and do this every year or whatever at the Last Supper scene, Protestants will say, well, that is symbolic. It's not really his blood that we're drinking. It's not really his flesh we're eating. It's symbolically his flesh. It is symbolically his blood. The problem is that this is so disgusting an image, okay, that it violates this whole thing about Leviticus 17:10 through 12, including 17:11, which is don't drink blood. It's
Right.
forbidden to us.
Totally.
You see, now to answer his question, the reason why this whole image Jews are disgusted by it is because it violates the most basic premise of keeping kosher: is you don't drink blood, you don't eat blood. Sorry, rare steaks are out.
Right. Sure enough. Unbelievable. Okay, Rabbi, we got about 5 minutes left. You were.
You're no fun. We just started.
I know, man. I knew, especially with this topic, this is something that needs to be a 2 or 3 hour program.
Before we go on to what you want to go on, can I?
Yeah, totally.
I got into a conversation with a Christian missionary. I love it when they think they know better than I do, or than the Jews do. It's not me. They think they know better than the Jews. And I made a comment to him about the multiple internal contradictions of the New Testament. Okay?
Okay.
Right. And he said, that's not true. There are no contradictions. Every contradiction you think is there can be explained.
That's funny.
Okay. So he said, well, give me an example. Okay. And I said, very simply, a human being, when they die, when they breathe their last, whatever words they just said before they breathed their last are what we call the last words. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, what were the last words of Jesus?
My God, why have you forsaken me? Or, Father,
Or,
forgive
that's
them.
the point. It's
or, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Right.
Well, those are two possibilities.
Okay.
And they're important possibilities because in the same verse, Luke 23, verse 46, John chapter 19, verse 30, it either says, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit, or it says, it is finished. And then the very next line is that he gave up the ghost.
Right.
He died.
Right.
His soul went to God.
Right.
However you want to understand it. So it's explicitly clear in Luke 23 and John 19 that the last words before having died contradict each other.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you also take a look at Matthew and also take a look at Mark, so it's Matthew 27:46, it's Mark 15:34, okay, you also have two other versions that contradict Luke and John about the last words of Jesus. One reads, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. The other one reads, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. The initial difference between the two phrases are the first two words. One is Eli, Eli, one is Eloi, Eloi. If you take the first one, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, that's Hebrew.
Right. So,
And what?
nope, go ahead.
Well, what does lama sabachthani mean? Eli, Eli, my God, lama, why?
To
but
what?
then you get
Yeah.
this interesting word, sabachthani. Supposedly, Jesus is on the cross and he's got nothing else to do because he's totally in control of his faculties, and he's quoting Psalm 22. Psalm 22 is Hebrew. Remember, there's no Aramaic in Psalms, none. And in Psalm 22, it's Eli, Eli, lama azabtani. So if if Matthew 27:46, he's speaking Hebrew, which is indicated by Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani is not the same thing as lama azabtani. It's a totally different word in Hebrew.
Interesting.
Sabachthani means, why have you entrapped me?
Wow. Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. And that makes more sense to what he said. Why have you forsaken me? which is a whole new problem within itself.
Right, because if Jesus is God, how can God forsake himself?
And if he knew he was going to die, why? It seems like he fulfilled it, not forsaken.
Not he's being forsaken.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
but that also indicates that the will of Jesus is not the same as the will of the Father,
Right.
so that Jesus knows Jesus isn't the Father.
Right.
If their will is not the same, they're not the same.
Yeah. Wow.
If you take a look at Mark's version, 1534, it says Eloi, Eloi, which is in fact Aramaic. And Lama Sabachthani in Aramaic does in fact mean, my God, why have you forsaken me?
Ah, right.
Okay. So if it's Aramaic, then it could be, in fact, yes, a quote from Psalm 22.
Okay.
Because it's Aramaic. But
Got
the
it.
Matthew is Hebrew, and it doesn't say Azabtani, it says
Wow.
Sabachthani, which is a totally different meaning than forsaken. So one could actually say these are 4 different renditions of the last words of Jesus. Either it was Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, or it was Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, or it was Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit, or it was, it is finished. But you can't have 4 different renditions of the last words. That's
Yep.
one example, quick example, and I think one of the best examples of how the New Testament, especially in the what's called the Passion narrative, contradicts itself.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Right.
Unbelievable. Rabbi, man, I'll tell you what, I wish we had a few more hours. That would
I
be
always do.
really...
I enjoy this conversation with you.
Man, I'll tell you what, this is definitely one of the highlights of my week, and I really appreciate your time.
Always.
And the conversation, and hopefully people will continue to call in and or send their questions on Facebook. Well, I don't really watch Facebook during my shows. Typically, we'll watch the YouTube comments. So for all you people, the shy ones out there who don't want to call, put your statements on and your questions on YouTube chat. It's a pretty neat because you can actually talk back and forth with the viewers there as well.
And if you happen to like the music we began with, okay, it's Joe Buchanan, and it's his rendition of Shalom Aleichem.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. I like it. I'm gonna
I
play
think
the
it's
rest of the
wonderful.
song.
And
on the way out.
you can get his CD online. You can go to joebuchananmusic.com.
BUCHANAN.
But I think the whole CD is brilliant, just brilliant.
So here's the on the way out. We'll have to play out the rest of the song. Rabbi, thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure.
It was my pleasure.
And remember, next week I'm recovering, so
You got it. We'll see
yeah.
you in 2 weeks. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you guys soon. Enjoy the rest of the music, and we'll see you on the other side. Shalom, shalom. This is one of those silly glitches that I've got to fix. I'm going to let you listen to this while I fix this, then we'll play the edge. I'm going to turn it up a little bit, Rabbi. I'm liking
Go
it.
ahead. Also, happy Passover to everybody.
Yes. Chag Pesach Sameach. Indeed. Indeed, indeed.
Chag Pesach Sameach v'Kasher.
Amen. Shalom. See it again. Okay. Why are there no words? Is it? Oh, you know what? I started it too late, didn't I?
All right, that's okay.
I'm gonna let it keep playing.
It's just music from here out.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. In that case, hey, you know what? This is our show. We can do what we want to, right? I gotta get to the chorus, man. The chorus was so awesome. Okay, here it comes right here. Wait for it. Oh no! It was too late, right? I'll let it play off while I do some video editing.
Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem. מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון, ממלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאצכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי